Episode 1. The Goblin, the Dragon, and the Pan. Bep leaned against the counter of the old tavern, staring at the empty tables. The dim light of the hearth flickered over the worn wooden beams, casting long shadows that made the place feel even lonelier. This tavern had been his sanctuary for years, where he could cook, chat with travelers, and forget about the hard years behind him. But lately, the seats remained unfilled, and the clatter of tankards and cheerful banter had faded to a disheartening silence. Bep, now in his late 40s, had seen more of the world than most. His life as a traveler had taught him how to survive every hardship, but all he wanted now was peace and a warm kitchen. He'd spent years honing his craft, creating dishes that even the most skeptical goblin-hating humans couldn't resist. Cooking proved that goblins could be more than thieves and troublemakers. It was his way of finding a place in the world that had never wanted him. Tonight, only a handful of his loyal regulars sat by the bar, nursing their drinks in sullen silence. Bep's pointed ears drooped slightly as he scrubbed an already spotless mug. His temper flared every time he looked at the empty seats, and the nagging question gnawed at him. Why was no one coming anymore? Bep slammed a mug on the counter with a frustrated huff, startling the few loyal patrons who still frequented his establishment. "Why does no one come to eat Bep's food anymore?" he muttered aloud, his gruff voice filled with irritation. "Bep makes good food, the best food, but no customers. Why?" "Ain't your cooking, Bep?" Brock said, scratching his graying beard. "Food's as good as ever. Problem's that damned Tempest." "Tempest?" Bep frowned, his thick brow furrowing. "Why are people scared of him?" "Tempest, not come here." Brock sighed and took a slow sip from his mug. "It's not just about him showing up, lad. It's what he's doing out there. Burning villages, stealing everything that ain't nailed down. Folks are scared. They're staying inside, hiding their valuables, too afraid to go out, even for a good meal." Bep gripped Rusty's handle, feeling the familiar cold iron against his skin. "Tempest," Bep spat, the name leaving a bitter taste in his mouth. "Tempest make trouble, scare Bep's customers. Bep worked too hard for this tavern to let stupid warlord ruin it." "Tempest isn't just some warlord," Brock said, his tone somber. "He's a demon prince. Strong and armored like a dragon. He's got half the land terrified." Bep's grip tightened on Rusty, the old blade that had saved him more times than he could count. Bep had fought bigger and meaner things in his time. No one told him what he couldn't do. "Bep fix this," he grumbled. "Bep not afraid of Tempest. Bep take Rusty and Bep end this." Brock's eyes widened slightly. "You're gonna go after Tempest? Alone?" Bep nodded, his mind made up. He was tired of losing customers and seeing his hard work threatened by a demon who didn't even know he existed. "Bep do things Bep's way. Rusty's still sharp enough and Bep is not afraid. Bep take care of Tempest and Bep's tavern be full again." With that, Bep strapped Rusty tighter to his belt and marched toward the door. He knew the path ahead would be dangerous, but he didn't care. Bep had fought his whole life to prove himself, and if it took putting an end to Tempest's reign to do it, then so be it. "Bep come back with customers," he declared, "or not at all." And with a determined scowl, Bep pushed open the tavern door, stepping out into the night. Rusty clanked softly at his side, a silent reminder of the battles yet to come. But Bep was ready. Tempest would soon learn that you never mess with a goblin with something to prove. Bep trudged through the rugged terrain of the Skydrake Peaks, the air growing thin and cold as he ascended. The towering mountains, veiled in clouds, seemed to stretch on forever. As ancient as the world, dragons called this place home and made it clear that any intruder was unwelcome. Bep had already learned this lesson the hard way. The few times he'd been spotted, he had narrowly escaped being roasted. Moving carefully, he kept his eyes peeled for any sign of dragon patrols. Rusty was sheathed, but ready. The goblin's stomach rumbled, reminding him of his long journey ahead, but he focused on staying out of sight. He had heard that the path through the Skydrake Peaks was dangerous, and the dragons were particularly fierce about their territory. Just as he thought he was progressing, a shadow fell over him. Bep saw a massive black dragon descending from above, its scales shimmering like polished onyx. The dragon's eyes were glowing embers, and its roar shook the ground. Bep froze, his heart pounding as the dragon landed with a thunderous impact, blocking his escape route. "Well, well," the dragon rumbled, its voice deep and resonant. "A little goblin trespassing in our territory. I wonder what's for dinner." Bep swallowed hard, glancing around for any means of escape. There was none. He could already feel the dragon's hot breath on his face. Thinking quickly, he decided to try an unorthodox approach. "Bep, not want to be dinner," Bep said, raising his hands placatingly as he tried to think of a way out. Bep noticed that the dragon was just skin and bones. It looked as if the dragon hadn't eaten in weeks. "Bep can make you feast," Bep said as he got an idea. "If Bep fills the dragon's belly, the dragon will help Bep get through peaks. Deal?" The dragon's eyes narrowed, intrigued. "You think you can fill my belly? I've devoured whole herds in one sitting." "Bep cooks good food," Bep replied with a confident nod. "Better than dragon ever had. Bep, prove it." The dragon studied him for a moment, its interest piqued. "Very well, I'll give you a chance, but if you fail, I will not be so merciful." Bep took a deep breath and nodded. He quickly set up his small portable kitchen, pulling out pots, pans, and various ingredients from his pack. He started with a hearty stew, adding spices and herbs with a practiced hand. The dragon's eyes widened in surprise as the aroma filled the air. Bep moved swiftly, preparing various dishes, savory pies, grilled meats, and fragrant rice. The dragon watched with curiosity and skepticism as Bep worked his culinary magic. The goblin cooked with a fervor that only someone with deep passion and skill could muster. The dragon's sniffs turned into appreciative grunts, and it licked its chops eagerly. Bep kept cooking, his hands moving like lightning. The dragon started eating voraciously, and soon it became apparent that Bep was outpacing even the dragon's ability to consume the food. This is extraordinary," the dragon admitted between mouthfuls. "I've never tasted such flavor. You may have a point." Bep continued to cook until the dragon's massive belly began to bulge. The dragon let out a satisfied sigh, leaning back on its haunches. "All right, little goblin, I'm full. You've proven your point. I will help you through the Skydrake peaks." Bep wiped his brow, relieved. "Thank you, great dragon. Bep will not forget this." Now soft with appreciation, the dragon's eyes surveyed Bep's determined expression. "You have more than earned my respect, but a question remains. What drives a goblin to venture into danger?" Bep met the dragon's gaze, his expression serious. "Bep has quest to defeat evil warlord named Tempest. He make trouble and scare Bep's customers. Bep want to stop him, save tavern, and show everyone that goblins can be good." The dragon's eyes twinkled with amusement. "A noble cause indeed, but the path ahead is fraught with more than just dangers of the Skydrake peaks. There will be fire, darkness, and treacherous enemies." Bep nodded, his resolve unwavering. "Bep not afraid, but Bep thinks having a dragon friend would be very helpful. Will dragon join Bep on quest?" The dragon studied him thoughtfully. "Join you? It's rare for a dragon to take such a personal interest in a quest, but I must admit I am intrigued by your spirit. And your cooking." Bep's eyes brightened. "Bep's food is delicious, dragon not regret this. Together Bep and dragon can be unstoppable." The dragon's chest rumbled with a deep rumbling chuckle. "Very well, Bep. I will join you on this quest. My name is Onyx, and I shall lend my strength and knowledge to your cause." Bep grinned from ear to ear. "Great! Bep and Onyx make a great team. Let's go." With that, Onyx unfurled his mighty wings and lifted Bep onto his back. The dragon's majestic form soared through the skies, carrying Bep safely through the remaining stretches of the Skydrake peaks and beyond. As they flew, Bep and Onyx spoke of their plans and the dangers ahead, forging a bond of camaraderie. When they finally reached the edge of the peaks, Onyx landed gracefully. "We have come a long way together. The path to Tempest will be challenging, but I am ready." Bep slid off Onyx's back, his heart swelling with gratitude. "Bep, glad to have Dragon by his side. Let's defeat Tempest and show everyone what Bep and Dragon can do." With renewed determination, Bep and Onyx set out towards the next leg of their journey. The road to Tempest was still long and fraught with danger, but Bep knew that with Onyx's help, they stood a better chance of overcoming the challenges ahead. Together, they would face whatever came their way, ready to prove themselves and claim victory. As Bep and Onyx rested on the outskirts of the Skydrake Peaks, Bep pulled out an old worn map and spread it on the ground. Onyx craned his neck to peer at it, his sharp eyes tracing the lines and markings. "So where to next?" Onyx asked, flicking his tail as he lay comfortably beside the Goblin. Bep sighed, rubbing his temples in frustration. Bep needs a weapon that can beat Tempest. Tempest's armor is made of dragon scales. Very strong, very tough, nothing break it, except one thing, the obsidian sword. Onyx's eyes narrowed in thought. Where do we find it? Bep pointed to a dark, shimmering section of the map, surrounded by swirling lines and strange symbols. Fey Wilds, that's where sword is. Onyx studied Bep's expression. There was a flicker of something, frustration, maybe a touch of fear. "You don't seem excited about that." Bep clenched his fists, his ears drooping slightly. Bep does not like Fey Wilds, too many tricks, too many strange things, and... Bep shudders slightly. Queen, Bep knows her. Onyx raised an eyebrow. "You know the Fey Queen, how?" Bep grumbled, kicking at a loose pebble. "Bep and Queen we had thing once, not good thing, bad thing, very bad for Bep. She's sweet at first, but then mean, controlling. Bep not happy, so Bep leave, she not like that." Onyx looked at Bep with understanding. "It sounds like she hurt you. I can understand why you'd want to avoid her, but if the sword is the only way to defeat Tempest, we must face her." Bep nodded, though he still looked uneasy. "Bep no, but Bep not go in alone. If Bep see her, Bep might lose temper." Onyx unfurled a wing and laid it gently over Bep's shoulder. "You won't be alone, Bep. I'm with you." Bep glanced at Onyx and then at the twisting woods in the distance. "Onyx is too big, won't fit, and if the Queen sees a big dragon, she'll be angry." Onyx smirked, his eyes gleaming with a mischievous light. "Did I ever tell you I can change my size?" Before Bep could respond, Onyx's form shimmered, his massive body shrinking, scales retracting and folding in on themselves. In moments, Onyx stood no taller than Bep himself, his once mighty wings now cute, stubby things that looked almost like a bat's. He was a perfectly scaled-down version of himself, still proud and majestic, but undeniably adorable. Bep stared, mouth agape. "Onyx is small, tiny dragon." Onyx puffed out his chest, now at eye level with Bep. "I can be whatever size I need to be. This way I won't draw attention in the Fey Wilds." Bep blinked, then snorted with laughter. Bep likes small Onyx, very cute, like a tiny lizard, but cooler. Onyx rolled his eyes, though he couldn't help but smile. "I am still a dragon, you know, even if I am a bit, cuter." Bep nodded, his anxiety lifting slightly. "Bep ready now. With Onyx, Bep can face Queen. We get sword together." The two unlikely companions stood at the edge of the Fey Wilds, the shimmering, mystical woods stretching out before them like a sea of strange colors and whispers. With renewed determination, Bep and his newly tiny dragon friend ventured into the unknown, ready to confront the Queen and claim the obsidian sword. The Fey Wilds stretched out before them, a vibrant labyrinth of twisting trees, glowing plants, and shimmering mists. Strange creatures flitted in the shadows, and the air hummed with a low, magical tune that seemed to follow every step. "Are you sure you know where you're going?" Onyx asked, eyeing the ever-changing landscape. He flapped his stubby wings, still getting used to his diminutive form. Bep marched forward confidently, not even glancing at the mesmerizing distractions of the forest. "Bep knows. Bep knows secret path, direct route, no tricks." Onyx watched in disbelief as Bep navigated the Fey Wilds with the ease of someone who had walked the path 100 times before. He ducked under vines that seemed to move independently, avoided glowing mushrooms whispering alluring tones, and sidestepped pits that appeared out of nowhere. Onyx had expected the journey to be full of dangerous missteps and distractions, Still, Bep maneuvered with a focus that impressed even the skeptical dragon. After hours of walking, the trees parted to reveal the towering silhouette of the Queen's castle. Made of twisting roots and woven leaves, the structure glowed faintly under the moonlight as if alive. Tall and ethereal fey guards patrolled the entrance, their armor made of bark and enchanted silver. Onyx blinked, stunned. "You really did know the way." Bep shot him a smug grin. "Bep, not just good at cooking. Bep, good at many things. Now just follow Bep, be quiet." As they approached, the guards spotted Bep, their eyes widening. There were hushed whispers among them, and before Bep or Onyx could make a move, two guards stepped forward, ushering them inside without a word. Onyx glanced around nervously, but Bep sighed, his ears twitching impatiently. "They remember Bep," Bep muttered, more annoyed than surprised. The guards led them through the castle's winding halls, filled with floating lights and echoing laughter. The air was sweet, almost intoxicating, and Onyx had to resist the urge to reach out and touch the enchanting decorations that seemed to hover just out of reach. Finally, they entered the throne room, a vast chamber with a floor of soft moss and walls lined with blooming flowers that changed color with every breath. At the center sat the Fey Queen, resplendent and radiant, her gown made of petals and shimmering silk that seemed to flow like water. She looked up, her eyes widening in surprise and delight. "Bep," she purred, her voice as smooth as honey, "my little goblin has come back to me. I knew you'd return." Bep shifted uncomfortably, his grip tightening on Rusty. "Bep not here for Queen, Bep here for sword." The Queen's expression faltered, turning cold in an instant. "The obsidian sword? Why would you want that, Bep?" "Tempest is causing trouble. Bep needs a sword to stop him. Bep not here for anything else." The Queen's smile twisted into a frown, her gaze icy. "So, you've come crawling back, not for me, but for a weapon? I gave you everything, Bep, and this is how you repay me?" Bep stood his ground, though his hands shook. "Bep not here to fight. Bep just wants sword." The Queen rose from her throne, her voice sharp. "No, you broke my heart, and now you want my help? You can't have it, Bep. Leave, and don't come back." Bep clenched his jaw, anger simmering beneath his calm facade, but he nodded curtly. "Fine. Bep, leave." As Bep and Onyx exited the throne room, Onyx could see the frustration boiling inside his friend. But Bep said nothing, just marched through the castle, eyes scanning every corridor. That night, while the Fae celebrated in the gardens, Bep made his move. With Onyx keeping watch, Bep slipped through the castle's winding halls to the Queen's vault, a room hidden deep within the castle's roots. The door, woven with spells, stood no chance against Bep's deft hands and Rusty's sharp edge. Within, the obsidian sword lay on a pedestal, gleaming under soft, magical light. Bep grabbed the hilt, feeling the blade's incredible dark power. "Bep got it," he whispered triumphantly to Onyx, who was waiting by the entrance. They made their way out under the cover of night, sneaking past the guards with a quietness that only Bep's experience could muster. As they stepped outside the castle's boundaries, Bep felt a rush of relief until his foot caught on a stray root. "Bep, watch!" Onyx started, but it was too late. Bep stumbled, the sword slipping from his grasp. It clattered against the stone pathway, the impact sending a sharp crack through the air. They both watched in horror as the once mighty obsidian sword shattered into pieces, the blade splintering like fragile glass. Bep stared at the broken shards, his face a mixture of shock and fury. Bep broke it. Bep is an idiot." Onyx placed a reassuring claw on Bep's shoulder, though even he was stunned. "It's okay, we'll figure something out. You've come this far, we won't let this stop us." But Bep just sank to the ground, glaring at the fragments of the weapon that was supposed to be his key to defeating Tempest. Everything he had faced, the journey, the Queen, the memories, seemed wasted. But deep down he knew one thing, he wasn't giving up, not yet. Bep and Onyx trudged away from the Fey Wilds, the weight of their failure heavy on their shoulders. Bep's ears drooped, his usually lively eyes dulled with disappointment. The shattered pieces of the obsidian sword were still fresh in his mind, and every step felt like he was dragging the weight of his mistakes behind him. "Bep messed up," he muttered, kicking at a loose stone on the path. "Sword was only chance, now Tempest wins." Onyx, perched on a nearby rock in his more minor form, watched his friend's spirits sink lower with every word. The dragon's scales glimmered faintly in the light as he considered how to lift Bep's spirits. "Don't be so quick to give up," Onyx said. "I think I know someone who can help." Bep glanced up, his eyes filled with curiosity and hope. "Who?" "A wizard named Ahith," Onyx replied. "He's the one who forged the obsidian sword in the first place. If anyone can make you a new weapon, it's him." Bep's face brightened for the first time since their misadventure in the castle. "Ehith?" Bep remembers stories of Ehith. Bep knew he was real. "We go see Wizard now?" With renewed excitement, Bep and Onyx set off, shifting back into his full size so they could fly quickly to Ehith's hidden home. Nestled atop a floating rock formation, surrounded by swirling clouds and mystic winds, Ehith's house was as strange and mysterious as its owner. An ancient wizard, with a reputation for crafting robust magical artifacts. They landed in front of the house, its walls lined with strange trinkets and glowing runes. Bep knocked on the door, which creaked open to reveal Ehith, a tall, thin man with a long white beard and eyes glimmered with an unsettling cunning. He peered down at Bep, a look of disdain crossing his features. "A goblin," Ehith sneered, "and a dragon. Well, this is an odd duo." Bep puffed out his chest, trying to look braver than he felt. "Bep needs new weapon. Ehith made sword, so Ehith can make another." Ehith chuckled, a condescending smile spreading across his face. "Oh yes, I heard about that. You broke it, didn't you? Well, it's no matter. I have just the thing for you." The wizard disappeared into a cluttered room and returned with a tarnished old soup spoon. He held it out as if it were a royal scepter. "This, my dear goblin, is the legendary spoon of valor, perfect for a hero like you." Bep took the spoon hesitantly, his brow furrowing as he looked at the unimpressive utensil. "Bep thinks this looks wrong." Onyx's eyes narrowed as he watched Ehith's smug expression. The wizard was playing them for fools, but Onyx could see the truth behind the ruse. "You're mocking him," Onyx growled, stepping forward. "You think Bep can't be a hero because he's a goblin?" Ehith scoffed, feigning innocence. "Oh, no, it's just heroes aren't usually his kind." The dragon's scales bristled with anger. "Bep's more of a hero than any of the third-rate heroes that come to you and die on the battlefield anyway," Onyx roars, "and I see what you're doing, trying to keep the real weapon from him. The hero's light isn't some rusty spoon, it's in the other room, right?" Ehith's smirk vanished, replaced by a flicker of panic. "You don't know what you're talking about." But Onyx had already figured it out. He nudged Bep, and together they made a dash for the next room, shoving past Ehith's frantic attempts to block their way. The room they entered was filled with a soft, ethereal glow, a swirling, magical light that filled the air with a sense of power and possibility. At the center of the room was a pedestal, and hovering just above it was the hero's light, a swirling pool of light and energy that pulsed with ancient magic. Bep approached it cautiously, his heart pounding as he reached out. "Bep, don't!" Ehith yelled, but Bep had already plunged his hand into the light. For a moment everything went still. Then Bep felt something solid in his grip. He pulled his hand back, and there it was, a cast-iron pan infused with dark onyx streaks that shimmered with magic. The handle was wrapped in a leathery grip, and the base was etched with intricate runes that glowed faintly. Bep stared at the pan, his mouth hanging open in disbelief. "Bep's pan?" Ehith lunged forward to snatch the pan away, but Bep swung it instinctively. The cast-iron weapon collided with Ehith's face with a satisfying clang, sending the wizard sprawling to the ground. Onyx roared with laughter, his deep, rumbling voice echoing through the room. "Now that's a hero's weapon." Bep looked at the pan in his hand, a grin slowly spreading across his face. It wasn't what he had expected, but somehow it felt right. "Bep can work with this." Onyx nudged the unconscious wizard with a claw, then turned to Bep. "Let's get out of here before he wakes up. We've got a Tempest to deal with." Bep nodded, his confidence restored and a new fire burning in his eyes. With his trusty new weapon, Bep was ready for whatever came next. No matter what anyone thought, this goblin would be a hero, his way. With the onyx-infused cast-iron pan in hand, Bep and Onyx set off toward the infernal wastes. In this barren and hostile landscape, Tempest's dungeon awaited. As they navigated the scorching terrain, they encountered a kind demon couple who graciously gave them directions to the dungeon. The couple, who operated a quaint roadside food stand, were happy to chat and bid farewell to Bep and Onyx, with a warm goodbye and a care package of spiced infernal pastries. As they arrived at the dungeon, its ancient twisted doors creaked open, revealing a dark maze filled with traps and puzzles. Onyx looked around with keen, perceptive eyes, already plotting the quickest route. "Bayo will get us to Tempest in no time," he said confidently. Bep, however, was intrigued by the challenge ahead. "No, Bep wants to do puzzles. Bep can handle it." Onyx hesitated but nodded, giving Bep the lead. The puzzles ranged from complex riddles to intricate mechanisms, each more infuriating than the last. Bep tackled them with determination, but each failure chipped away at his patience. A shifting floor sent him tumbling back, a sequence of levers locked him in place, and a logic puzzle reset 3 times after Bep misread the clues. "Bep, let me help," Onyx suggested, watching his friend's frustration mount. "We can do this together." "No," Bep snapped, refusing to give up. "Bep can do it." But after several more failed attempts, Bep's resolve crumbled. He sank to the floor, ears drooping, admitting he was overwhelmed. Finally, he glanced at Onyx, his pride bruised but his stubbornness faltering. "Fine. Bep needs help." With a nod, Onyx stepped in, quickly unraveling the puzzles with sharp intellect and ancient wisdom. The dragon bypassed the traps and solved each puzzle in moments, leading them through the dungeon's labyrinthine corridors until they reached the innermost chamber. There, perched upon a throne of jagged obsidian, sat Tempest, the towering tyrant whose reign of terror had driven Bep to this point. Tempest rose, his dark aura pulsing through the room as he prepared to monologue in typical villain fashion. "You dare challenge me, insignificant?" But Bep, fed up with everything, the puzzles, the failures, the endless fighting, finally snapped. He let out a furious scream, cutting Tempest off mid-sentence. "Enough!" Bep roared, his voice cracking with raw emotion. "Bep is done with you." Before Tempest could react, Bep charged forward, his pan held high, and his fury gave him speed and strength. He leaped into the air and swung the cast-iron weapon with all his might. The pan connected with a resounding crack, knocking Tempest out cold. Tempest crumpled to the floor, unconscious and defeated. Bep stood there, breathing heavily with Tempest lying before him. Bep felt an unexpected mix of satisfaction and guilt as he stared at the fallen villain. This should have been a victory, but instead, it felt hollow. Bep turned to leave, eager to escape the overwhelming emotions that churned inside him. But as he turned to leave, he found the exit barred by heavy iron gates. "Trapped," Bep muttered, slumping down. "Of course." While waiting for Tempest to awaken, Bep and Onyx explored the grand room, filled with hoarded treasures and relics. The chamber was a veritable vault of rare artifacts, gold and jewels. Bep's eyes roamed over the glittering collection until he found something peculiar, an unmarked, worn and tattered book. Bep flipped through its pages, struggling to decipher the words but piecing together enough to understand its tale. The book chronicled Tempest's struggles, rejection and loneliness that twisted him into the monster he became. Bep saw himself in those pages, the isolation, the bitterness, the anger at a world that never gave him a chance. Memories of his hardships flooded back, and Bep's heart ached with empathy. He knew all too well the pain of being cast aside, of being seen as less than everyone else. Tempest stirred, waking slowly. His expression was blank, his memories seemingly lost. He looked around, confused and vulnerable, nothing like the menacing figure from before. "Where am I?" he asked, his voice devoid of its usual menace. Bep watched him closely, torn between his initial anger and a newfound understanding. He realized that Tempest wasn't just a villain to be defeated. He had lost his way, much like Bep had once felt in his own life. Bep took a deep breath, setting the book aside. "Tempest is Bep's best friend," he said, choosing his words carefully. "We went on adventure, found treasure. Now we all go home." Tempest looked uncertain, caught between believing Bep's words and the nagging doubt in his eyes, but Bep's sincerity was undeniable. Onyx nodded in support, his presence comforting as he stood beside his friend. As they left the dungeon, Bep's thoughts were filled with everything he'd learned about Tempest. He no longer saw him as just an enemy. He saw someone who needed a second chance and could find a place just as Bep had. Returning to the Iron Caves with a new, albeit unconventional, sense of camaraderie, Bep invited Tempest and Onyx into his tavern, where they found warmth, food, and laughter. It wasn't long before the three joined forces permanently, purchasing the tavern and transforming it into a bustling establishment, known far and wide. They called it the Bottomless Cauldron, Tempest's idea, a nod to the endless food and fellowship they hoped to provide. The Bottomless Cauldron became a beacon of hospitality, with Bep's cooking, Onyx's fiery personality, and Tempest's newfound humility. No one who walked through its doors would be judged by their past or their species, and every guest would be welcomed with a hearty meal and the promise of friendship. Together, Bep, Onyx, and Tempest found a new purpose, and the family they had each longed for in their own ways. And though the pan Bep wielded remained a symbol of his unorthodox heroism, the bonds he forged truly defined his most incredible adventure.